Okay, we're going to get started here. Now we'll get started. It's 5:30. Welcome everybody to the June 2nd, 2025 City Council meeting. It's a special meeting tonight. And I'm calling the meeting to order, and I would ask our Abby Hara to please call the roll.
Councillor Ring,
Present.
Councillor McLaughlin,
Present.
Councillor Runyon,
Present.
Councillor Randall,
Present.
Councillor Richardson,
Present.
Mayor Mays.
Present. Item 3 is Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to call on Councilman Dan Richardson to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Councilor Richardson and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5A. It's my pleasure to introduce an upstanding young man by the name of Samson Maston, and his mother Lynette is with us today. Samson is the winner he's the winner of the If I Was the Mayor 2025 contest. There were several entries, and Samson's short video stood out, and we decided to give him first prize. And with no further ado, I'd like to call on, we're going to show his video, and then I'm going to call him up and give him his prize. So proceed.
Big problem I've noticed. Parking around downtown is a big problem, especially if you live there. Not fun having to circle around the block for a parking spot, just for someone to slide into the last second. On the top of it, potholes gone, cracks eliminated. I'd implement a pothole park that any volunteer can help fix roads and sidewalks. All of the cracks go to collect. Children not scattered around our street. Garbage dump to the photo shoot. It affects the environment. I would get more public trash cans if people are less likely to live. More trash cans are reduced. But a clean town also relies on part of our local business keeps it out. That's why anything is for local businesses and you'll be better lighting. Or crosswalks, safer sidewalks. Don't go in walking.
Samson, why don't you come on up and get your first prize? Excellent job. I just found out Samson's only a freshman. So we've got 3 more years of entering this contest. And we'll expect you to be a first and foremost. So there's your prize. And I think your mom wants to take our picture. Oh, she already got it? Oh, sure.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Sam. Back up here. There you go.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Hey.
Nice job.
So, Mr. Mayor, on what day are you going to get all those items fixed?
Well, he did mention a volunteer committee for the potholes. So whenever we have a committee, we're always looking for a chairperson. Council Runyon, since you brought it up. All right. Item 5B. This is another great presentation. This is to the Dalles robotics team. For the second year in a row, they've accomplished a lot going to it's the world 3 times now. Okay. I'd like to call on Coach Chuck Weber to come forward, please. Talk a little bit about the team and what they accomplished this year for the 3rd year in a row.
Nope. The button on it didn't. Yeah.
All right, you can hear me now. The sorry, words are a little hard. Syntax Hair was the 3-time state champ in robotics, which if you put it into terms about athletics, where there's all the different divisions, there's one in robotics. We compete literally against everybody. Portland, Beaverton, Klamath Falls, doesn't matter. These guys literally beat them stop for 3 years straight.
Wow.
They got to go to world championships, and while they probably will beat themselves up and say, hey, we could have done better, ultimately, out of the over 9,000 teams worldwide, they were in the top 5%.
Wow. Great.
We have one graduating senior, Zach Banks, who is going to be attending OSU in engineering, which continues a trend of our graduates going to college. Zach, how much you paying? Full scholarships. So these kids work other jobs, they play other sports, they do other activities, and they still perform at the level that they do. So I'm very proud of them. This is actually the 4th year that we've won state, but they've only won 3. 3 of them are juniors. They literally couldn't have. So our goal is to win again next year and continue doing what we're doing. So I couldn't be prouder of them.
Well, I think I speak for the city council when I tell you how proud we are of the kids. And so I have a certificate of recognition here for everyone. I'm going to come out and read your name, and please come forward. First is Coach Weber. Chris Arnardson.
Maybe come forward so we can get a picture.
Tim Morales.
Come on up here. We'll line up in the front.
Colin Schechter. And Zachariah next. Here it is. City of the Dalles proudly honors the Dalles High School robotics team, Syntax Air, for their exceptional achievements in robotics. This year, Syntax earned their 3rd consecutive XBRC Oregon State Championship title, continuing a tradition of excellence and innovation. Their victory also marks the 4th straight state championship for the Dalles High School robotics program, a remarkable accomplishment reflecting years of dedication and collaboration. Team Syntax Air advanced to represent Oregon at the VEX Robotics World Championship in May, once again bringing pride to their school and their community through their talent and perseverance. In recognition of their outstanding contributions to the field of robotics and the community, we extend our heartfelt congratulations to Syntax Air. On behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Dalles, please accept our congratulations.
Save space on your docket. Next year we'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Those of you who may have missed the coach's last comment, he said they'll be back next year. So, I must say too, we've honored many kids, students here, high school students, even middle school students for their accomplishments. I can think of the girls softball team, which took the state title 2 years ago, several track stars, a couple of wrestlers, but never have we given an award for 3 straight state champions. We've never done that. So.
Longest. So Lisa's son did robotics.
Oh, wow.
Been doing this for a while.
Mm.
It said, save a docket for us.
Okay. Okay. Well, you're going to have that in the minutes, right, Abby? Okay. No pressure. Okay, item 6 is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 3 minutes per person will be allowed. Citizens are encouraged to ask questions with the understanding that the city can either answer the question tonight or refer that question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Tonight, we have 2 people on the agenda or on the audience participation. First is Judy Richardson.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak to you. My name is Dr. Judy Richardson. I'm a lifelong resident of the Dalles 3515 Crest Court. I'm also completing 6 years of service for District 21 School Board, which is what brings me here today. Thank you for honoring our kids, especially when they do amazing things like our robotics team. But really what I want to thank you for is the cost sharing for the Safe Routes to School program that will impact children who you may never see in front of the dais. But hopefully, Chief will never see being called out as a 911. As a physician in public and with the public health department, I did several safety walks in the Safe Routes to School prior to the pandemic, and I know that you know what a need that is, and I just want to thank you for supporting our kids.
Thank you, Judy. Next is Chuck Gomez.
Chuck Gomez of the Granada Theater. Oh, yeah.
I didn't check it. There you go.
Chuck Gomez
Yeah.
of the Granada Theater. Good afternoon, council members, staff, and ladies and gentlemen in the house and in the audience. And I'm here to make an informal report and update from the Beautification Committee. We are soon to be making a formal, more structured report to the council, but we felt it was good to know that you knew some of the things the Beautification Committee was doing. We are moving forward with our tree grant program, which was 110% successful last fall. Every single tree of the 50 trees were given away. A few extra trees were available and a few extra people were happy to receive those. Those were all reviewed ahead of time by the committee, mostly John Nelson and Janet, to make sure they went to the proper places and helped beautify our community. The other thing I'd like to mention is our new downtown flower grant that is made possible this year by $3,000 allotted from the City Council. We have put out our plea for grants for downtown beautification, sidewalk pottery, flower plants, dirt, water bills, flowers, plants, greenery, your choice. Well, some of the committee members and myself had hoped for at least 3 or 4 people to apply for that. So we asked, with the most optimistic goal of a grant of $300 for 10 people, and it was granted to us for $3,000. So we had hoped for 3 or 4 people to apply, and we received 23 applications. I was blown away by so many people in the downtown area wishing to beautify the sidewalks of our community and make it more appealing to the residents and tourists alike. Of those 23 people, 10 were awarded, and we are soon to start the process of seeing the fruition of those grants take place in our community. So that's our update on our flower grant and tree programs from the Beautification Committee, and I can conclude with, I'm sure we are all extremely pleased with the results of the Trivet Triangle at the edge of town. It is absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm sure I speak for the City Council when I tell you how much we appreciate your service on this committee. Also, Debbie Ferrer, John Nelson, and Jan Oldenburg are also on the committee. They've done a lot of great projects over the years, and the triangle you just alluded to is actually at the corner of Trevitt and 6th Street, I believe. It's right by the bridge. So I would encourage those of you that have not been by there recently to check it out. They really did a nice job with that triangle. So again, thank you, Chuck, and thanks to the committee. Okay, that's it for audience participation. Now we move on to item 7, City Manager's Report. Mr. Klebs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few items for this evening. I wanted to mention and note for the record that the minutes from the Budget Committee meeting have been approved. Wasco County declared a fireworks ban. As the council may recall, this triggers the ordinance we passed not too long ago on the same topic. So there will be a personal use fireworks ban within our city limits, and the public information officer will be working with the police department and our public works department to disseminate and push out that information as we get through the month of June, closer to July. I attended a meeting for emergency operations planning with several other city staff, meeting with Wasco County and a consultant that they have brought on board to really update a Dalles specific addendum, really focused on our response to emergency incidents, evacuation of the city, and other particulars. We had a meeting with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce and again, other city staff to begin planning for the 2026 Cherry Festival. As the council may know, we have a couple of construction projects most likely coming down the pipeline, reconstruction of First Street as an urban renewal project and the Federal Street Plaza, both of which will impact the traditional area where the Cherry Festival was held. And so we want to be coordinating and planning for that next year. The SIA Community Outreach Team met last week and began discussions about their next trip back to Washington, D.C. in September to advocate for local policies and projects. There was also substantial discussion about what legislation is headed down to Salem, with specific conversation around transient lodging tax dollars and the upcoming street funding TRIP 2025 legislation. There's a lot of activity around those two topics. I believe I wanted to introduce Stephen Sprague, unless I mispronounced your last name, or I'm looking at the wrong individual. Is he not here tonight? Okay.
No.
I wanted to introduce Steve Sprague, who is our new transportation manager. He'll be joining us from ODOT. I'll have him come to maybe the next council meeting. Yeah, thank you. That's my apologies there. And another staffing update, as the council knows, I sent out an email earlier today that we do have 2 finance staff positions vacant or soon to be vacant in our finance department downstairs. We'll be working to develop an interim plan and recruit for those positions, but we'll be a little bit tight on bandwidth in our finance department for for the foreseeable future. It's very difficult to recruit finance staff, and we've had an excellent department down there, and we'll be working through those transitions. I wanted to let the council know that the dog ordinance has been delayed a little bit. We will be bringing that back to council, but we've been having additional discussions with the various vet offices in our community who have provided some additional input that we want to take into consideration before bringing that back to you for potential action. I wanted to remind you that tonight is a special meeting, so we will have another city council meeting this coming Monday. And I wanted to make sure the council knew that I intend to be taking a vacation between June 13th and June 20th coming up. I'll have my phone with me and everything, but please don't call it unless you need to.
What kind of vacation is that? If you're taking your phone.
I know. It's attached to my hip though. And that's my report for tonight. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the city manager? Okay, moving on. Council reports. I'll start on my left with Councilor Runyon.
Nothing to report. I am back in Oregon.
Welcome back. Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing I think for me, and that is last week's urban renewal meeting. That was last week, which was pretty lengthy. We had pretty involved discussion about several projects. There's obviously some minutes and some records. I'd be happy to go over those with folks. Perhaps the biggest takeaway to my mind is that the Craig building has some new owners, and they're pretty excited and motivated to really overhaul and refresh that building and make it a pretty lively area, or a couple of businesses, I think, a couple of related businesses there in the Craig building next to the Federal Street Plaza to be. And they're also pretty excited about integrating or working closely with the city on that project. And I think that's it for me tonight.
Okay, Councilor Runyon, or excuse me, Randall.
No report tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also at the urban renewal meeting on the 20th of May, and I've received some pretty good feedback from downtown businesses with the changes that we've made to the guidance for the incentive program. So I'm very encouraged to see that move forward. I had a meeting with the Sister Cities, the Dalles Sister Cities organization on Tuesday. Pardon me. They are due to depart for Japan on June 9th, and they'll be gone for about a week. There's 7 students and 3 chaperones going this time. And in October, Miyoshi City will, of course, have their delegation visiting the city of the Dalles. So looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
Attended airport commission meeting. Nothing to report off from that. It was mostly just procedural. Urban renewal, there was an appeal that we heard, and it was a land use appeal, and that was a decision was made there. I'm working on strategic placement of video rollouts. It's an ad hoc effort to find out where would be the location of video cameras now and for the future, so we can have a strategic recommendation back to council on that. And I also want to remind everyone it's coming into summer. Kids are going to be out and about. Please slow down. We're getting cars in the evening that are racing around town, and we hope to curtail that before someone gets hurt. And that's it.
Thank you. As far as mayor's report goes, I was on KODL coffee break with Councilor McLaughlin and Al Wynn on May the 20th. On May 23rd, I had a nice meeting with the interim executive director for Mid-Columbia Community Action, Leslie Naramore. And on May 27th, I did another interview with Mark Bailey on KACI, radio interview. Item 9. Consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the more important items and issues. Any counselor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. We have 3 items on tonight's consent agenda. First is the approval of the May 12th City Council meeting minutes. Second is authorizing the city manager to execute an estoppel certificate and agreement for Plain Cave LLC, which is an airport ground tenant. And third is authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement to support Clickitat County's EDA grant at the airport. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or are there any questions?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And McLaughlin was second.
It's been moved by Councilor Ring and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Councilor Runyon.
I would ask that the resolution about the planning commission, unless that's been taken off on an updated agenda already, I would like to have that removed from the consent agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
Okay, so it is on mine. So
An old one or two.
I have no problem then.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is everyone ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 10A is consideration of a recommendation for awarding a contract for the library's HVAC system. Mr. Klebs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to ask Mike to join us up here at the table, or up at the staff presentation table here. The item you have before you is a recommendation for award of the library HVAC replacement project. This is a project that's really been spearheaded by Mike, our facility supervisor, and is long in coming for the library district board and the library itself. What was the age on the HVAC unit again?
67.
This is a 1967 HVAC system at the Dalles Wasco County Library, which has clearly exceeded its service life and has been increasingly unreliable and difficult to service and find parts for. As I mentioned, this is a project that's been long identified, and Mike was able to facilitate the procurement of engineering and design services for MKE and Associates, followed by a request for proposals to replace the system. Those proposals were opened on April 29th. We got 3 bids, and AirX was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And so we are here tonight to receive or get your authorization for the city manager to execute the contract for AirX to replace the library HVAC system, contract number 2025-004. The low bid was $423,000, $423,640. This project has been budgeted and sufficient funds are available in the Capital Projects Fund. And this is one of the projects under our new IGA that both the library district and the city work together on. And so we're approaching this as a 50-50 split. And the project was also awarded a $115,000 grant from the Department of Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Program, which will be used to support the project. As the council may recall, the library also serves as a clean air shelter. And we've been joking for the last few months that the library HVAC system is either going to break on July 4th or December 25th. And so we're really glad to see this project going and will be executed this fall, correct? And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I just want to say thanks to Mike for spearheading this and leading it forward. Thank you.
I believe we have at least 2 members of the library board with us tonight. Would you like to stand and be recognized? Introduced? No, you don't want to? Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know, that's Corliss Marsh. So, okay. Questions for the city manager or the facilities? Go ahead, Councilor.
Mr. City Manager, I'm not following the math. So the recommendation is to award AirX the HVAC replacement project not to exceed 423. Are we going to get some sort of reimbursement from the library district? Is that the idea, or is the project actually twice as much?
Yeah, so we will enter into the contract for that amount. We'll expend those funds and then draw down from the grant afterwards.
All right, very good. And do we have any notion of the expected working life of this AC. I'm guessing it's going to be probably somewhat less than the 55 or 57 years the last one was.
I would certainly hope we would be more proactive in that effort. I think across the board and with some of the changes we've been making in the facilities department, we're trying to really tackle and keep ahead of some of the deferred maintenance items. I don't know offhand what the lifespan or life expectancy of the new system is. Do you, Mike?
They say about 25 years.
Thank you.
Other questions? Anybody like to make
Mayor Mays,
motion? Yes.
I would love to make a motion on this one. Authorize the city manager to execute a contract with AirX for the library HVAC system replacement project, contract number 2025-004 in an amount not to exceed $423,640.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Counselor McLaughlin and seconded by Counselor Richardson to award the contract for the library HVAC system to AirX. Is there any more discussion or any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good job.
One comment, being a longtime user of the library, it's great to have this finally happen after all these years.
And one additional comment, if I may, is I want to give a special thanks and shout out to Ann Moorhead, who helped us with the grant that she applied for. Ann was an AmeriCorps Resource Assistance for Rural Environments, RARE program volunteer, similar to myself and others throughout our community. The city was hoping to apply for another RARE this year. The RARE program, as far as we know, will not be moving forward with some of the funding changes and cuts to the AmeriCorps program. So it's unfortunate to see that program go away, but it was very impactful and helpful, and a special thanks to Ann Moorhead.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Item 10B is consideration authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Dalles Chamber of Commerce for tourism promotion services. Mr. Klebs.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before, I just wanted to make a quick statement. As being a small business owner downtown, I understand that Oregon's ethics laws require me to disclose actual or potential conflicts of interest I may be met with when participating in the city's official decisions. And for transparency, I wanted to disclose for the public record that despite my belief that I do not have a conflict of interest here, my family does own a small business downtown and are members of the Chamber of Commerce. As a chamber member, our business, like all of the chamber business members, pays a membership due in exchange for services. And it seems to me that any official action here tonight would impact my family's business in the same degree as other members. My family's business has also received economic grants from the chamber, but has not received any such grants since I have been sworn in as city councilor, which means none during my term of office as one of the public city's officials. And while the chamber is a 501c3 and therefore not a business for the purposes of the state's ethics laws, I still wanted the record to reflect my disclosure, but I don't believe that there is a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Ring.
Here's that. Good.
Yeah, based on how you've described your situation, I don't see where you would have a conflict as well. So anybody else want to weigh in? Okay, we'll move on and turn it over to Mr. Klebs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is my staff report detailing contract number 2025. My apologies, I'm just noticing a typo. In order. So there's a typo either on the agenda. One moment, please. So just for the record, the contract for the library HVAC replacement project is 2025-005. and the contract for tourism promotion services is 004. So my apologies for that error there.
I trust we don't have to do another motion or anything. We'll just make the correction.
No.
Thank you.
So this is for contract number 2025-004 with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce for tourism promotion services. As the council recalls, last year, we started a process to review our transient lodging tax and other associated tourism topics, one of which was the expiration of a tourism promotion contract that we had or have until the end of this month with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce after years of successful service. As part of our local contract review board rule process and general best practices, we went through a full request for proposal process for competitive proposals to solicit the best contractor and define the services that we were looking for. As part of this process, on January 27th, 2025, the City Council approved and formed an ad hoc tourism services contract review committee. This committee had several appointees who were selected to represent certain business sectors, most specifically restaurant, lodging, and local attractions, as well as bring individuals with subject matter expert in travel, tourism, and economic development to this process to bring that expertise and the evaluation of the proposals that we received. I believe we have two individuals who served on that committee, Cheryl with the Columbia Discovery Center, and we have Dan Spots online as well, the city's former economic development officer who retired and left us behind. But no harm, no foul, Dan, if you're hearing me right now.
He's muted, but feel free to unmute yourself, Dan, anytime.
On February 20th, we issued the RFP and closed on March 25th, and we received 5 different proposals from Noble Consulting LLC, the Granada Theater Spotlight Tourism Center, the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce, the National Neon Sign Museum, and Watson Creative. Of those proposals, one was rejected because it was submitted after the deadline for the RFP. And as is standard with any of our RFPs and processes, the city attorney reviewed the remaining proposals to make sure that they were aligned and fulfilled responsibility standards under the state of Oregon's procurement rules. The state's purpose for requiring these minimum standards is to make sure that public contracts that are awarded to a contractor that does have the capability to perform the contracted work at a level of expertise and efficiency required by the public body, required by the city, and we have a high confidence level. 2 of the proposals, Watson Creative and the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce, were deemed fully responsible to perform the entire scope of work. One was partially responsible, the National Neon Sign Museum, specifically to cruise ship services. And one proposal was not responsible because it was not able to demonstrate to the city that it had completed previous contracts of a similar nature successfully. And we could have that high degree of confidence and that demonstrated track record of fulfilling such services. The ad hoc committee convened on April 10th to review the 3 proposals. The specific areas we were really looking at was general tourism marketing, visitor hospitality services, major events, our cruise ship industry, media campaigns, content marketing, and marketing analysis and data reporting. The committee had a very robust discussion and recommends that the city assign these contractual responsibilities for tourism promotion services to the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce. There was an additional recommendation that the ad hocs included in their report to me, and that was to really take advantage of this opportunity to think about and talk about what tourism looks like and could be in this community. Quote, this tourism contract affords the city the opportunity to assess how tourism recruitment and destination management should occur in the Dalles. This is more about simply managing the visitor experience. It's about exploring community expectations, branding refresh, anticipating fiscal challenge, and identifying an image reflecting our community's multifaceted character, end quote. With that recommendation, I worked with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce and their CEO, Lisa Farquharson, to incorporate into the scope of work some additional effort around that very topic. This took the shape of a destination development plan reflecting the committee's recommendation, and really focused on a process or a workshop or some community involvement to really come up with a strategy or framework for how we want to see tourism grow, develop, and be managed in our community. We also worked on a few other minor changes to the scope of work, such as reporting periods, method of providing information to visitors on the weekend, and a few other various points. In support of that destination development plan and that effort, the Chamber had actually already proactively submitted an application to Travel Oregon's competitive grant program back in February to support such an effort. The application was for $93,000 with $5,000 in-kind contribution from the Chamber itself. This is a pretty substantial additional value that the Chamber brings to this contract and is an example of grants and other opportunities an entity like the Chamber can leverage to fulfill some of these different contract scope of work requirements. Regardless of whether or not this grant is awarded, so we don't know if it's been secured yet, the city and the chamber agree that we'll work into this framework that critical need, and that we'll work together to revise the scope of work and potentially the budget, additional city resources if needed, or adjusting one category from another. We'll work through that process given the critical need for this framework and how it could contribute to our long-term success. I also wanted to note in the Chamber's response, there includes a proposal to hire an executive tourism director to help fulfill or really lead fulfilling the proposed scope of work under this agreement, and it will allow the Chamber CEO to more directly focus on services the Chamber provides to its community members, to the community and its business members. The budget implications associated with this contract, we had basically put a placeholder in our upcoming budget of $450,000. The proposed budget with the Chamber's submission is for $465,000. This proposal also commits to a maximum annual increase of 3% for each of the subsequent contract years, which is a very nice addition and gives us some certainty and structure as we move forward. So if the council gives me authorization tonight to enter into this contract, we'll need to make a small adjustment when we go to adopt the city's budget this coming Monday on June 9th. And with that, that is staff's recommendation to give me that authorization to enter into contract 2025-004, personal services agreement with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce for tourism promotion services in an amount not to exceed $465,000 as presented. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
There's no objections. I'd like to invite Ms. Farquharson to come forward and in case there's any questions for her. I know I might have a couple. Questions for the city manager? I have a few. Watson Creative, do you know where they're from?
I believe they have offices in Bend, Portland, and I believe also somewhere in Washington.
Okay. On page 2 of the report, the staff report, there's 7 bullet points there. Could you explain the 4th one is cruise ship industry?
Yes.
Are there plans to, like right now, the chamber's not doing the cruise ships, is that correct? So they would take over the cruise ship.
Well, and so there's been some discussion on that topic of what does take over the cruise ships really mean. And so there has been some discussion with entities such as the Chamber, with Main Street, with our economic development officer around who holds what kind of roles. And one of those focuses, for example, is that the city owns and through our contractor, I guess you could say, operates the cruise ship dock, our riverboat dock that we have here. And we facilitate the docking of those cruise ships in our community. We don't have the same level of engagement or sole responsibility in developing or connecting the cruise ships and their passengers to destinations, to excursions, to assist them or the individual passengers with their particular needs. We may assist them in facilitating certain logistics such as trash or water or fuel. And so we've been having some conversations around, who does what when it comes to the cruise ship industry. And I think one of those key areas under this contract is engaging with the cruise ships who come here, and to help them get connected with potential excursions, to provide them information for what we have available in town. We have self-guided excursions and self-guided tours, and having someone convey that information if there are questions, having this contractor, having the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce would really assist in that area. I also think there's some opportunity to engage other attractions, the Dalles Main Street, for example, and how else they could assist or contribute. But we've had some shifting of this responsibility over the years, kind of back and forth. And so we really made a point to include this as one of the elements of the scope of work for that clarity and refinement as we move forward.
Great, thank you. Is it fair to say that the other 6 bullet points are already being served by the chamber with the current contract, other than cruise ships?
Oh, sorry. I would say, so general tourism marketing, visitor hospitality services, major events, media campaigns, content marketing, and marketing analysis and data reporting.
All the above. Just a second. The part right below that in italics, I'm a little confused with the wording, is opportunities to strengthen the proposal. Did somebody on the committee write this, or did?
Yes, that was the committee provided me a recommendation, and that was one of the paragraphs in their recommendation that I thought really touched upon the opportunity we have here to do destination development and really develop that framework. We're not just trying to manage people who are coming here. We really want to put some meat and some structure around, our identity, our brand, who we are, what we want to focus on. And I think that's really an involved process. It involves the chamber, it involves the council, it involves the community. And so this Travel Oregon grant, for example, would be very helpful in helping to define that. It's a fingers crossed.
Lots of fingers crossed.
It's a conversation that I think we've had in different places and in different groups throughout our whole community for a number of years. And so again, Travel Oregon's grant could be really helpful in really facilitating something that helps define some of the deliverables and what we focus on, and more importantly, why we're focusing on it in the coming years.
And right below that, you talk about a community-wide workshop to develop a comprehensive tourism. That's the kind of thing you're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think another thing that to add there, and Lisa maybe can speak to it a little bit more, with the Datafy subscription that we have, we are collecting a substantial amount of data that on when and how and why we have visitors coming here. And I think that framework and that strategy will be better able to leverage and use that data too. We can look for particular trends. We can really target something that we want to target on and see if we can make a difference or a change or an improvement and have that data to back it up.
Top of page 3, excuse me, top of page 3, you talk about the grant. When do we expect to know whether or not?
June 17th.
June 17th.
It's circled on my calendar.
Okay, I'll circle it on mine too. How's that?
So that is when Travel Oregon is supposed to announce the award winners of the competitive grants that went in January.
Great. Yeah, that would be awesome if we could get $93,000. And my final question has to do with your proposal to hire an executive tourism director. What's the job market out for this kind of position? Do you know? I mean, is it?
It's quite a few. So this will go out through not only WorkSource, but through Travel Oregon, which has lots of different looking to do this type of a job in different locations. They've already got their feet on the ground with Travel Oregon, which is a plus. So we are also, Matthew mentioned earlier with the RARE program that there is a discontinuation of that program for now. Well, there's a lot of people who are in that program planning to be different places this fall. So, and a lot of them do have that tourism piece. And so we probably have more candidates available for this position this year than we probably would have if we put it out last year. I have not put the job announcement out yet because I wanted to wait until after tonight. And then we'll probably putting it out by tomorrow or Wednesday to go active and then start beginning that search.
Great. Well, this is just a suggestion. When that goes out, I'd like to see maybe a member, a city representative on that committee, since we're talking about this will be somebody who's going to be working very closely with the city, I would assume. So just a suggestion. Councilor McLaughlin, you had a question?
I do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember a transition from city organized boat scheduling to, was it American Empress? They took over that position.
So American Cruise Lines
Oh.
handles the dockings at our marine terminal that we have here.
Correct.
American Queen Voyages, I believe, went out of business, went into bankruptcy last year or maybe the year before. But American Cruise Lines actually acquired one of the boats, so there's a little bit of overlap there.
My question is, how is it working? Has it been effective? I mean,
I think from a docking standpoint and logistics and whatnot, I think it's been working quite nice. I'm looking over at Abby here, and Amy also assists with coordinating with the cruise ships, with the American Cruise Lines for docking purposes. It seems to be going pretty well. I think probably the biggest, and this is where this contract may come into play, the biggest change is how American Cruise Lines has been handling some of their excursions. So in last year or the year before, there were a lot of excursions that basically took the visitors out of town. So they bussed them all the way actually back to Multnomah Falls for a while.
goodness.
I think this year their itineraries have changed somewhat, but we're still hoping to keep more and more of those passengers in town to visit the Discovery Center, to visit the Fort Dalles Museum. There's a hop on, hop off bus line that has been there and then not been there too. And so I think some of that coordination and some of that outreach as to what may work and what hasn't been working for them would improve things moving forward.
So do we have a mechanism? Do we have a person that, pushes that?
Not at the city. That's why we included that element in this contract scope of work.
That would be included in this contract. Thank you.
And I don't know if you recall, but we did do that originally when the ships first started, coordinated with the ships and making sure that the maps would work, and the stops would work, and they had the right storage, if they had this and that. So those are things that we have done in our office before. So we're prepared to take that on. The tourism director will be prepared to take that on with some guidance because I have done that for a few years.
Understood. Thank you.
Other questions? Council Ring?
Thank you, Mayor. The travel organ grant would you're looking at that to fund a temporary position then?
No, the travel organ actually would be a contract for destination development program or a destination development event. I'm going to put it that way. But it has a contractor coming and the contractor would need this. And we, her and I wrote the grant together. She's done this in several communities and in different states. So we wrote this grant together so that she would be leading these efforts. And then the first thing she's going to be doing is orchestrating and gathering a tourism committee that has to have a 3-year commitment. She prefers 5, but she's going to start with 3. That they have to do this for the long haul because this is a long haul type of a situation of doing that development, coming up with the plan, priority, strategic plan, and then what is that we're going to do grants to get some places and all of those pieces. So it's a process that she will be orchestrating as a contractor.
Okay, thanks. And so this will be a continuing position at the Chamber of Commerce through how?
To the contractor?
The contractor.
She, I believe, has she has the timeline. It's in here. I have to go back. It's in the grant that I did. The timeline, I believe, is 9 months that she's a part of it. And then at that point, it's handed over to the committee and the tourism director. I mean, they would move forward with the rest of the plan and fulfill those things that were required.
Okay. And just a quick clarification, the budget, so for fiscal year 25-26, we held $450,000 aside, and I understand we'll adjust that before we meet on Monday, but I would imagine that'll just be a continuing budget line item for the duration of the contract, right?
Nearly so. I would expect to continue to receive something similar that we see on page 21 of the proposal. As noted in the proposal, there's a not to exceed 3% increase in subsequent years, which will help, I will say mitigate cost escalations in other areas.
Thanks. That's what I was about to ask. Like, what are we planning for the future as we go into this? So, thanks.
Other questions?
I have a
Councilor Richardson?
I have a couple of comments, if that's acceptable.
Well, before we comment, I'd like to ask anyone in the audience who would like to come up and address the city council regarding this proposal. Yes, ma'am. Please identify yourself and
You want me to use the mic?
please.
The first time I've come to a city council meeting. So, all right, I'm on. My name is Cheryl Rager, and I am the executive director at the Columbia Gorge Discovery Center and Museum. I've been there for all of about a whole year now. So I am learning and gaining knowledge. And one of the reasons I was so pleased to be part of the committee and learn and meet some people, Dan Spatz and some others who I had not met before. So I'm delighted to be here. I have some questions because even being on the committee, I don't think it came up as much as I realized about the whole how the cruise line will work, because I can, so I'll be very interested as we move forward, hearing how that works. Right now, just as a little background, as I've learned in the last year, we actually work very closely with Anna Gaffney and others at the cruise line. So we're the umbrella organization for the tour guides that do all of what they call the local loop, the hop on and hop off, which, as Matthew pointed out, we have been working with them and with Sally Forrester, who's sort of the tour guide organizer under our umbrella, in encouraging more of that. There are excursions that start at the Dalles that go to Mary Hill Winery and to Bonneville Dam still. Not so much Multnomah Falls. They kind of stop that, but so they do go outside the Dalles as well. And of course, we also then play the second role with the cruise lines in that we are a destination within that local loop route, along with, as you pointed out, the Neon Sign Museum, and I'm going to be really bad here and forget, but Fort Dalles Museum and other wonderful attractions we have. So I guess I'll be very interested in seeing how, if that role is changing for us in the connection with the cruise lines. I'll be interested in watching that. And I'm, of course, always interested. We are growing and trying to bring new excitement to the area as well. Even with, as I can be very sympathetic to the library, our own air conditioner that completely stopped last year, and I'm not very excited about our event this weekend with 95-degree temperatures, but it'll be wonderful. It's outside and with wild flowers and watershed, so I'm sure it'll be delightful. But we are also very interested in, continuing that. So I guess there's not really a question there so much as just I will be curious how that all develops as well. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, and appreciate your service on the committee. Anybody else in the audience who would like to address the city council regarding the contract? Ms. Long, former council member, presently another assignment with the Columbia Gorge Community College. Congratulations.
Oh, so actually, I'm here tonight as a board member of the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm one of the newest board members. And I just wanted to say I didn't I don't speak for the board. I'm just a board member who came on, but I wanted to emphasize that the chamber board had long discussions about whether or not they wanted the tourism contract. Some of the past, there's been, an impression or even some accusations that the chamber was using that money to support businesses rather than tourism. And as a council member, I saw the budgets and I saw the numbers of what came out of the chamber, and I was very impressed with that. I think that this hiring of a tourism director is really going to help delineate that line and make it really clear to people. But the chamber has been doing a fantastic job, and it's to Lisa's credit that she was able to convince the board to keep this. My personal opinion is that it would have hurt our community to not have this contract local with someone who's been doing such a good job with it for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment on your comment that you mentioned questions regarding how they spend their money. To my knowledge, none of those questions were coming from anybody on the city council. They were coming from outside this group. I mean,
correct.
Yeah.
Other than the council doing its due diligence, of course. But yes, it's well documented how the money was spent and was shown to city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience would like to comment on this contract proposal? Okay, Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Lisa. Couple of thoughts. One is, I guess, it's about time. I'm glad the city is doing this. It's good and proper that we have put this out to a public process and in a competitive process with some vetting. And I'm really encouraged, and I expect and hope the chamber to just sort of take the ball with it and run. I feel the city maybe has not ever, or at least in recent years, given very clear direction and sort of left it up and said, go forth and bring some tourists.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. And so I'm excited.
Go for it.
I'm excited that we are now thinking more carefully about it. Mr. City Manager, I have a couple of thoughts with regard to the scope of work. One, the same one other people have brought up is the cruise ships. I feel it's really important that we lean into this and bring those folks as much as possible into town, and to the extent that the new tourism director and yourself and the chamber can be engaged in fruitful conversations with the Discovery Center and other partners to keep them pretty local, that would be great. I'm glad to hear that the hop on, hop off bus is in conversation. And I would encourage you all, as that perhaps gets rolling again, that it's welcoming to people in town as well. I think that would actually make it a more lively service. And I guess that goes to one of my thoughts that I've had about tourism, and not to sort of go on at too much length here, but I do hope that we take this opportunity collectively to think about how we can lay our tourism on, not just to bring people here, but also to improve quality of life and amenities for people who live here already. So a hop on, hop off bus that I can get on, or other folks can use as an activity, might be one way to do that. So I guess I'm encouraging you to look for opportunities to do double duty with our various pieces of the contract. Yes, encourage tourism. Yes, be thoughtful about branding, but also let's be looking for ways we can improve our own quality of life and community while we do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, if I may make just two brief comments. First, around the cruise ship component of the contract. I just wanted to add this context, which might be helpful. Contractor will promote and market the community to various cruise ship lines, be responsive to urgent cruise ship visitor needs, and assist in developing excursions and other related opportunities in partnership with local businesses and nonprofits. Contractor will coordinate with the city, who manages the operation of the marine terminal, near the Union Street underpass. So that was the verbiage in the RFP itself. And to the other comment a moment ago in the actual contract itself, I just want to point out that Article 7 of the contract is a robust records and accounting provision, which is a very robust provision and something that the chamber's been fulfilling with their previous contract, which gives the city the information and insight as to how the monies are being spent, with at least an annual report, with additional quarterly reports as requested and as needed, and the ability to look into that information as part of this contract and most of our other contracts too, to be frank. So just wanted to make that note as well.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Councilor Ring?
Thank you. I'm really excited about this, but I'm also very interested in seeing future, more than just a cruise ship showing up in town. I think that getting other activities in town that aren't centered around, sort of a single point of failure, is going to be good. And I think that this affords an opportunity for that to happen in a robust and collaborative way. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to authorize city manager to enter contract number 2025-004, a personnel services agreement with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce for tourism promotion services in an amount not to exceed $465,000 as presented.
McLaughlin will second.
It's been moved by Council Ring and seconded by Council McLaughlin to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with the Dalles Chamber of Commerce. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you. We've been doing this for a while, and we do look forward to having some new aspects, new direction. I've been asking for 12 years, what would you guys like to see? And I'm getting it. So thank you. And then we will definitely be staying in touch with Matthew as we move forward and different things and going on. And I will keep you posted on June 17th if we get that grant. So just all of you cross your fingers and send out good vibes, because this is our second time trying for this type of a grant. We tried the year before for less money and I went for all of it. So yep. So we will keep you in touch, and I look forward to working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 10, make that 11A, consideration of an ordinance amending the municipal code by creating a chapter entitled recreational property. Mr. Cleaves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be reviewing the staff report included in the packet here with the assistance of our city attorney, Jonathan. The issue before us this evening is consideration of adopting general ordinance number 25-1415, which is an ordinance amending the Dalles Municipal Code and creating Chapter 5.03, recreational property. As the city council and the public may be aware, there is a concept called recreational immunity in the state of Oregon. And Oregon landowners in the city, we've historically been granted this immunity from liabilities associated with injury claims from the recreational use of our property. You'll see this most often, or what comes to mind most readily, are parks and playgrounds and things like that that are free and open to the public, and people can go and use those facilities. Part of the concept behind recreational immunity is landowners should not be unduly burdened with the fear of potential lawsuits, which might discourage them from making their property available to the public for such recreational use. So if you were to go to a playground or a park and roll your ankle or break your leg or something like that, and threaten to take legal action against the property owner, that may discourage them from making that property available for such use in the future. Recreational immunity mitigates this risk. Over the last couple years, however, recreational immunity has been a hot topic as several different challenges or lawsuits have been brought associated with it. One in 2023, some of the very high-level details involved an individual who was using an improved path, who injured themselves. That path was leading down to the beach, I believe, and the statement or the position of the person who injured themselves was that they were not using that path for recreational purposes. They were using it for transportation-related purposes. And so over the last few years, recreational immunity has been under discussion, under threat, one may say. And CIS, the City County Insurance Service, which is the city's insurer, has recommended that the best course of action when recreational immunity is in this kind of turmoil is to close your improved recreational property. And so these improved paths over on the coast were closed, and individuals could no longer access the beach in those areas because the paths had been closed as the courts kind of work through these difficult issues. It's pretty critical for some of the city facilities that we have, such as Lewis and Clark Park and Rockford and potentially the future plaza. Similarly to Northern Wasco County Parks and Rec facilities, Cirrhosis Park, Thompson, the public is free to go and use those facilities, and they do so at their own risk in essence. There was a temporary fix in 2024 short session to extend recreational immunity to improved recreational facilities, but that fix sunsets in 2026. And so again, with this on again, off again, and some of this uncertainty, the city attorney and I got together to think of a creative way or solution to make sure that the city can continue to provide and make available some of the recreational facilities that we have while minimizing the city's liabilities as things kind of take their course and one challenge is brought up or another, and these things are kind of worked through. So the proposed new chapter, Chapter 5.03, Recreational Property, applies an ordinance that's somewhat similar to the ordinance we passed not too long ago to manage overnight parking in our city parking lots. The main connection there is that the ordinance only affects or takes effect on properties that have posted signage. And so it gives us a little bit of flexibility here to employ this ordinance where and as needed. And as I mentioned, the posting of a sign with those particulars and those rules and that information is when that property feels the effects of this ordinance. Some of the signage that could be on that sign would be recreational day use area only with various rules. In effect, this ordinance would authorize the city manager to only allow the public to use certain recreational properties for recreational purposes. So in essence, again, using the example of the Lewis and Clark Park, if we posted a sign that said recreational day use area only, you can only use the Lewis and Clark Park for recreational purposes unless you have a permit, and I'll go into that in a moment. Recreational purposes as defined by Oregon law include outdoor activities such as hunting, fishing, swimming, boating, camping, picnicking, hiking, nature study, outdoor educational activities, water skiing, winter sports, viewing or enjoying historical, archaeological, scenic, or scientific sites, or volunteering for any public purpose project. The proposed ordinance does have two outright specific exceptions to the general rule, and that the first one is the Lewis and Clark Park has a electric vehicle charging station, and so that is an exception under this ordinance to use that facility. And the other exception is if you are crossing a property on a designated pedestrian path while in the course of walking for transportation, directly related to that case I mentioned a moment ago. One area that I could see employing this designated path is at the plaza. If someone was moving from the parking lots to 2nd Street and wasn't going through the plaza for recreational purposes, they would follow that specific path for that transportation use. Otherwise, a permit would be required for any intended or actual use of the posted recreational property. So you would need to get a permit if you wanted to use the Lewis and Clark Park for a non-recreational purpose, for the exclusive use of the Lewis and Clark Park, or for a use that generates any kind of revenue for any purpose, or is otherwise inconsistent with rules adopted by my office. That permit would be available for single day or multi-day with some restrictions and guidelines. There would be a fee set by council on the city's fee schedule to use, again, using the Lewis and Clark Park as an example. To use the Lewis and Clark Park for a non-recreational use or for your exclusive use, you will have minimum insurance requirements and indemnity for the city. Again, because recreational immunity will not apply. One multi-day permit is available per person per month, and one single-day permit is available per person per week, with no more than 10 total single-day permits in a month. Multi-day permits will be up to 5 consecutive days, and a multi-day event will need to expect a gathering at least of 100 people per day. And that provision was put there because when you have a reservation for, again, the Lewis and Clark Park for someone's exclusive use, you're taking it out of circulation to the general public. The general public can't use that facility. So I could go out, if this provision wasn't in there, I could go out and reserve the Lewis and Clark Park for 5 days just for myself, and making that park unavailable to the public for that many days. We're trying to balance, this private use or this permitted use with its availability to the public. Permits can be denied and revoked under certain conditions and can be appealed through our normal process here, typically through the municipal judge. Enforcement and penalties on page 3 or 4. Again, similar to the overnight parking ordinance that we have, city staff and police, codes, et cetera, will make education our first go-to. We'll make sure that people are aware of these rules and how they may use the park appropriately, how they may secure a permit, et cetera, et cetera. But there are penalties for violations of $1,000 per violation for individuals and $2,000 for corporations. There are also some exclusion rules associated with, if it's their first, second, third, or more citation for using the city's recreational property inappropriately. If adopted by council tonight, we'd like this proposed ordinance to go into effect immediately to ensure the city's liabilities are mitigated as much as possible. And there are minor costs associated with posting signage on the respective recreational property, educating staff, and enforcement of this ordinance. And so the staff recommendation tonight is to move to adopt general ordinance number 25-1415 as amended. And I'll turn it over to the city attorney, because I don't recall what the amended section was offhand.
Thank you. There is a small drafting error. We had a couple of drafts of this ordinance bouncing back and forth. And so there was a small drafting error I wanted to mention because it actually has, if it's adopted as presented, it actually results in a drastically different ordinance. So I definitely want to make sure that council flags this and it came out in your packet as well, so that it is adopted as amended. The drafting error is at the bottom of the second page of the ordinance, section 503020. Subsection C, it's the definition of what a permit means under this chapter. What it says is it means it's a city-issued permit granting a person the city's permission to have exclusive use of a certain recreational property for purposes not limited to recreational purposes for a fixed duration. This language in here about exclusive use is a holdover from previous versions of this ordinance. And so staff's recommendation tonight is, as Matthew just mentioned, is to adopt this ordinance as amended, the amendment being removing references to exclusive use from the definition of a permit. As Matthew mentioned just a minute ago, permits are required in 4 instances. One of them is if you want exclusive use of the park really for any reason, but it's not the only it's not the only instance for when a permit is required. Other instances would be if you want to use the park for something other than recreation, regardless of whether it's exclusive or not. And so again, section 503020, subsection C, should have reference to exclusive use removed. And it's absolutely something I can fix in the draft before the mayor signs it if council decides to adopt it here tonight. And then very finally, I'm, of course, happy to answer any specific questions about the ordinance itself. But I did want to mention for the mayor, this is one of those where because this ordinance proposes a new fee, and that would be, as Matthew mentioned, coming in a city fee schedule update that we have slated for June 9th. Despite that, this is creating a new fee. And so it would be wholly appropriate under Oregon law to give the public an opportunity to comment on the adoption of this ordinance before council votes on it.
So be it. And that's the staff report. Questions for the staff? Counselor McLaughlin.
Would this ordinance only apply to city property? Meaning recreation, parks and recreation, Kelly Viewpoint?
No, this would cover city-owned property and property that is posted as such. So similar to the overnight parking ordinance we have, the only city-owned parking lot where we've posted such signage is actually the First Street parking lots.
Got it.
We can employ and post similar signage in some of our other parking lots, but there hasn't been that need yet. I imagine this ordinance for city-owned recreational property being used just offhand at the Rockfort site, Lewis and Clark Park, and as I mentioned previously, the potential Federal Street Plaza in the future.
My next question is there an effort to work with Parks and Rec to develop a similar plan so we don't have one set of rules for one group of parks, which we've had in the past, and another for other parks?
So the Northern Wasco County Parks and Rec Department, as I understand it, has a variety of different rules and permit processes in place. This specific chapter is really focused on that recreational immunity component. We have a different ordinance, I believe, for example, that touches upon smoking and prohibiting smoking in the Lewis and Clark Park. So this ordinance itself really focuses on that recreational immunity part and the use of posted property for recreational purposes only, unless you have a permit.
The reason I bring this forward is because at the Kelly Viewpoint, there are things happening that could be potentially hazardous to people. Some of the activities like speeding vehicles, doing donuts in the parking lot, things like that.
Well, certainly, this is part of the process when you're creating and adopting a new ordinance, and the input and questions from this meeting tonight is incredibly helpful to know if there's support for this ordinance, and it's something that we're going to move forward with. And it's certainly something that I can convey to the Parks District to let them know this is something that did receive support. Here were some of the questions we received, and happy to talk to them about it.
I'm in support of this ordinance, but I'm also in support of connecting with Parks and Rec, so we have a coordinated effort. Thank you. That's my questions.
Any other questions? Councilor Runyon?
Just some clarification. In the event we had a former city councilor here a few weeks ago before I left the state talking about walking his dog, and that'll still be okay in the city-owned parks. However, if he were to have a group of 50 to show up at 10 a.m., that would require a permit because it is not a recreational activity, correct?
Well, so for that individual, no, he will no, I'm just kidding. That individual and walking his dog in the park is absolutely a recreational activity that is permitted.
It is?
50 of
I
them.
didn't see it on the list.
So recreating in that use or that purpose, you're talking about the specific list that we reviewed there?
So, yeah, so that
I'd probably put it down under an outdoor
activity,
hiking or exercise activity like that. And I think, if an individual goes down to walk their dog, that's a recreational activity. If 50 individuals go down all walking their dog, that is as well. The only time a permit is required is if you want the exclusive use of the park. If I wanted the whole park just to myself to walk my own dog, I would need a permit. Or if I wanted to use the Lewis and Clark Park for a non-recreational purpose, then a permit would be required as well.
So music concerts, et cetera, are items that need to have a permit as they have in the past?
Most likely because they're either going to be exclusive use of whoever's putting on that concert and or money is being generated by that activity.
Maybe I missed it. I'm looking at my small computer here tonight. Permit costs. Is that listed somewhere?
So on the upcoming, this coming Monday, we'll have a revised city fee schedule that the city attorney has been working with our department heads on, with a couple different fee adjustments. And the fees for these permits associated with this ordinance will be on that list. We'll be moving that forward if there's approval from council this evening on this ordinance.
Signage about permits and the changes and whatnot, simple and narrow, something there that directs them to City Hall, I'm assuming.
Yep. So I had a very preliminary meeting with some of the administrative staff that we have here to work on developing the specific verbiage associated with that sign, the sign verbiage, and updating the existing application that we have. We'll roll it out just as quick as we can and try and make it as easy and friendly as possible.
I know there has to be some legalese in there, but I would hope the majority of the sign is in human English that we can all understand.
Sign, the cheaper the cost.
So this applies to the Dalles City Park also. Is that our park?
That is a park owned by Northern Wasco County Park.
It is owned by them.
City
So,
Park is owned by Parks Park.
so what other city parks are there besides Lewis and Clark then?
So really at this time, it's the three that I've kind of mentioned. There's the Rockfort site, which could benefit, especially from the archaeological component of recreational use that I read a moment ago. The Rockfort campsite, the Lewis and Clark Park, and the potential future Federal Street Plaza. Other than those two facilities, this city doesn't have any other recreational property that I can think of. Unless Dale's trying to get my attention here. Oh, thank you. Yes,
Which one?
it's called Hecka Park over by 9th Street. It's it's like an oversized Trevitt triangle.
It's about as big as this room. That
What about Howe Park?
That's owned by Parks and Rec.
Oh,
So Howe Park is a city park.
Howe Park is a Parks and Rec park.
Okay, I'm having trouble hearing, so.
Yeah, sorry about that. So the city doesn't have too much recreational property. I think the primary ones where I could see employing this ordinance would be Rockfort, Lewis and Clark, and the Plaza.
Okay.
And really the idea at heart is that somebody can't walk their dog down Lewis and Clark, get tangled up, hurt themselves with the leash, and then sue us.
And claim that they weren't using the park for recreational purposes. The only thing allowed in that park will be recreational purposes unless you have a permit.
How energetically do we have to enforce that or actively interpret it for it to hold, do you suppose? You know, if we see somebody taking a nap down at one of the lawns at Lewis and Clark, do we need to rouse them and rouse them out and say, this is not recreation?
Well, I just want to jump. I mean, sleeping is not really recreation. And so whether it was being enforced under, like, whether it could be enforced,
yeah,
it seems like it could be. Although we have some safeguards, as Matthew mentioned in his staff report, against sort of like indiscriminate, enforcement without first educating somebody about the chapter's existence, giving them an opportunity to, move on their own. But if it became an issue, if the codes or the police officers that would be enforcing this decided that it was an issue over time, then it would be something that we could enforce. We'd have the option of doing it. Whether we would is up, frankly, to the police department and the city manager.
Any other questions?
none.
I'd like to read a series of short statements here. I want to make sure that I understand all this within the proper context from where it originated. So the first statement is, historically, before 2023, the court case, property owners, including the city, were immune from liability for recreational use incidents on public and private property.
That is kind of true. And sorry, you're asking me, it looks like, so I'll give you my answer. Yeah, that was true immediately prior to that case. However, for the last 7 decades, or about that, there has been this sort of merry-go-round back and forth, on again, off again type of relationship with the Oregon legislature and recreational immunity. It's one of those things that, due to that uncertainty, that type of dynamic really emphasizes and underscores the importance of having some control here as a city over our property. And so immediately, like right before that case came out, yes, that is true.
Okay.
That's why I said it's kind of true, but
Well,
historically, not so
I
much.
said historically before 2023, so it's
Right. So historically,
before
not
the
so
court
much.
case.
It's been a on again, off again kind of a thing.
But that rule generally applied before the court case.
Yes.
Okay. So in 2023, the court case ended recreational immunity for all landowners.
For improved pathways, yes.
And I got a question about that, but let me read the rest of it. In 2024, the state legislature passed a temporary fix that sunsets in 2026.
Yes.
Okay, so therefore the staff is proposing this is a permanent fix that allows recreational uses and some permitted uses for our public lands.
Almost. The type of immunity that recreational immunity offers is not something that the city can ordain ourselves. However, right, the intent of this ordinance is to say, look, if you're using our property for recreational purposes, then if you get injured, the city has recreational immunity. And so we shouldn't have to suffer for making our improved areas open to the public for recreational purposes. But if you're on our land, not recreating, so you're using our land for purposes that are not recreational, this ordinance does not create additional types of immunity. What it does is it effectively criminalizes the use of our property that is posted with these signs for anything other than that, and or requires somebody to provide us insurance certificates to cover that liability in case they do get hurt, because then the city isn't facing risk exposure. We have a certificate of insurance that's been offered to us and that we're listed as an additional insured on, that covers the damages that could occur if someone's using the property, let's say, for a music festival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe if I may, one way to articulate it, maybe, if someone is walking their dog down in the Lewis and Clark Park and rolls their ankle or injures themselves and sues the city, and we invoke recreational immunity, and they make some kind of claim that says, well, they weren't using the park for a recreational purpose. Our next question would be, okay, where's your permit then? And so it kind of addresses or captures that dynamic.
That's right.
Okay, and despite the fact that the legislature passed a law that gives a temporary fix to this, which sunsets next year, this ordinance is not intended to be temporary at all. It's
right.
intended to be a permanent fix.
Right. It's permanently addressing the gap in liability coverage that the city would have from everything that excludes recreational immunity, which the legislature is not touching, right? So let's say today, for example, the legislature addresses this fix on a permanent basis for recreational immunity. It still doesn't cover the city at all if somebody's using our property for something other than recreational purposes.
Right.
So this is intended to complement recreational immunity, not like supplement it.
Okay.
One other question on that aspect. If the state fails to do anything, lets the rule go into the sky, we would then be exceeding state authority. Are we okay with that? Can we have a rule that's more extensive than the state? In planning, it's just the reverse. We're allowed to have less, but not more.
Yeah. Can you help me explain, what do you mean by exceeding? How would we be exceeding if the state didn't do anything, if they let this sunset in 26?
Well, if our rule exceeds what the state has as a limit for use of parks and recreational immunity, would we have a problem there? We'd have to roll it back?
Yeah, so this ordinance doesn't expand or this ordinance does not expand or limit recreational immunity at all. This is intended to sort of capture everything other than covered activities under recreational immunity. So I don't think we're in the world of exceeding the state's minimum requirements or maximum requirements. It's just covering everything that the state isn't. Whatever it is that they're covering, and that's up to the state. This ordinance is designed in such a way that it gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility. It covers everything other than whatever the state allows under recreational immunity, whatever that happens to be. As the law changes, this ordinance will always be in effect as this council decides.
If recreational immunity sunsets and is not extended by the Oregon legislature, this ordinance would still be in effect and it would still restrict the use of our property for recreational purposes without a permit. But we would no longer have recreational immunity to use, which would
We'd have a different.
we'd be in a
yeah.
different position
We'd have a
there on
completely-
whether or not we want to offer our property for recreational purposes.
Right.
But everything in this ordinance would still hold true.
This ordinance only applies to what you call here improved recreational facilities.
Yes.
So, and I know I've known about this thing for several years about this whole recreational immunity issue. I've always been confused by the word improved. So improved means basically anything. I mean, all of our facilities are improved, right? By that definition, you've had paved and constructed here. There's the plaza that we are going to be building next year, the Lewis and Clark Park, whatever. Those are all what we would consider improved facilities. Is that correct?
All over the city's recreational facilities would be
Right.
considered improved, but the city also maintains unimproved right-of-way that is covered by a different part of our code. There's a different state law that applies to immunities on unimproved rights-of-way. But recreational immunity is designed to be extended to improved areas. Again, to number one, incentivize landowners to allow the public to recreate, but number two, also to allow them to develop their land in ways that facilitates recreation without having to worry that, oh, just because I put this, this nice walkway here or this handrail, all of a sudden now I'm gonna lose my recreational immunity. It seems to be a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I get that. I want to make sure we don't have any unimproved recreational facilities.
Not that I'm aware of, except I don't know the degree to which Rockfort, as Matthew's been mentioning, are there any unimproved areas of that, Matthew?
Well, Dale mentioned something by Riverview. What's that? Is that a park?
Howe Park.
I believe Howe Park is a Parks and Rec park.
No, you said up by River. You said something about Riverview. Yeah, that's a park district, or that's a city park. Yeah, and that's improved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Riverview is the street. It's Howe Park. Yeah.
Okay. You threw me with the middle school. So, okay. So I just had another question. Is CIS given our blessing on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at the Parks and Rec website now, and they list Howe Park, which is what I believe our Public Works Director has been mentioning. They list Howe Park as a Parks and Rec facility, and it's not owned by the city. So if we have any crews out there, be careful. It's not ours. Yeah.
Have other cities passed a similar ordinance to your knowledge?
No.
This is we're the first
Yes.
to your knowledge. We're going to charge other cities if they copy our ordinance. This is kind of groundbreaking, don't you think?
Yes.
Well, kudos to the staff.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Council Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a brief mention of insurance and things like that. So is normally, like today, if somebody filed an application to have a music festival. We had one over the weekend at Lewis and Clark Park, for example. There's a required level of insurance already, right? So are we, with this, are we going to require the same amount or something slightly above?
Yeah. So the ordinance establishes these minimum requirements. Just the minimum, if you wanted to use it for anything, there are some minimum requirements and some policy coverages. This ordinance does that in a lot of different areas. It sets the minimum requirements for something. It also authorizes the city manager to adopt rules that are not inconsistent with any of those provisions. So, and those rules will be publicized and become effective through the processes outlined in the ordinance. But one of those rules we're envisioning, if council decides to go down this road tonight, would be, if the city manager wants to do this, it would be to have a provision, which I would recommend, indicating in those rules that, in order to apply for a permit, you need to demonstrate levels of insurance that are sufficient to mitigate the risk. I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to have a birthday party at Lewis and Clark Park. You want to rent it out for a Saturday for a birthday party. You're going to invite, let's say, 40, 50 people or 1,000 people, whatever the case is. But you want it for a day. Well, your insurance requirements, they might depend a little bit on how many people are attending. But more likely than not, the level of risk that's associated with that activity of having a birthday party is really dependent on what activities are happening there. If your birthday party, if you indicate on there, probably on the form, we'll have a checkbox here for describe your birthday party. If you have a bouncy house, well, the policy coverages might need to be a little bit higher to cover the risk of liability associated very commonly with bouncy house accidents. If you're not having a bouncy house, well, maybe your risk tolerances are lower. Those would be decided on a case-by-case basis, consistent with recommendations from CIS. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whatever the risk level is, it'll be determined, we'll have some baselines there, and the baselines are listed in the ordinance. They're really, really reasonable. In fact, they're a little bit lower than what our insurer really recommended. But we wanted to be mindful of the costs to our community members that want to be, renting out this park. And so we wanted to make sure that we had this right balance of keeping costs down to make this park very available. We want it to be very available, but also we need some risk mitigated to sort of effectuate its purpose.
And I think that was one of the keys to a lot of this and to recreational immunity is we want to make these spaces available to the public.
It's balance.
It's that balance.
Yeah. Councilor McLaughlin, did you have your hand raised? I guess I didn't see correctly. Any other questions or comments? Well, not comments. I'd like to call on anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this ordinance. Proposed ordinance. Okay. City council comments or any more questions? Looking for a motion?
Mayor Mays, I'll go ahead and move to adopt general ordinance number 25-1415 as amended by title only.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Randall to adopt this ordinance. Would anybody like to hear the ordinance read in its entirety?
No. No.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, the as amended component of that motion is to have the amendment that I mentioned at the beginning of when I started speaking after Matthew's presentation, the amendment being to section 5.03.020 subsection C and removing reference to the exclusive use associated with the city's permits.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, do we need to make that motion as amended then?
The motion was already made as amended. I just wanted it for the
okay.
record what the amendment was.
Okay. Ms. Harrow, would you please read the ordinance by title only?
Yes. Adopting General Ordinance Number 25-1415, an ordinance amending the Dalles Municipal Code, Title 5, fences by creating Chapter 5.03 recreational property.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other business to come before the city council? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
God, 7:15.
Now it's still